Hi Patrick, thank you very much for joining us on this episode of Trash Talk.
Thanks, it's good to be here.
Can a sailing trip accidentally launch a career in clean energy? In this episode of Trash Talk, I'm joined by Patrick Serfass, Executive Director of the American Biogas Council, from oceanography and architectural engineering to leading the charge for biogas in the US. Patrick's journey is anything but ordinary. We talk policy, people, and how scaling biogas means educating a country that still doesn't know it exists. I hope you enjoy this conversation.
So to kick us off, let's go into your background a little bit. Before you got into biogas, you had quite a different trajectory. I believe you were an oceanographer and architectural engineer. How did that happen?
It actually feeds into the renewable energy part of it. So I've always liked math and science, so I went to school to become an engineer and came out of school and got a job to do architectural engineering, which basically meant for some of the world's greatest architects. So Frank Gehry has done awesome projects all around the country and the world. The Experience Music Project in Seattle and all these other things. I M. Pei that did the Louvre in Paris and Vito Conci. Anyway, I thought I'd landed the best job ever, but I ended up sitting in an industrial park on AutoCAD with a 16-digit puck, and it was like a 7-person company, and I didn't get to talk to any of the cool people. I was just on AutoCAD doing design all the time. The projects were beautiful and creative and artistic, but I didn't get to have any people interaction. When I was out to dinner once with some friends, one of my the best friend of my girlfriend at the time said, "Hey, my cousin and sister and I just bought a sailboat and we're going to go sailing." And I was like, "Man, I've always been a lifelong sailor. I'd quit my job right now and go sailing if I could do that, because I was just bored out of my mind for this job that was otherwise so cool." And they were like, "Well, actually, my dad's got a sailboat in his backyard." So anyway, long story short, there was a boat that was available if I rebuilt it. I went and lived on a boat and sailed down to South America and back with a buddy of mine. And that whole time I was like, oh, now I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to do naval architecture. Mm-hmm. And so I came back. I lived in D.C., the Centers for Naval Architecture. I was going to design sailboats now, use my engineering, use my sailing. It's Annapolis and Newport, so convenient. So I started interviewing in Annapolis, and while I was doing that, I was living at home because I borrowed a bunch of money from my parents to do the sailing trip. And I told my dad, I was like, hey, why don't if you have any extra busy work at your company, I'll work for less than your lowest paid employee, and then I'll get income coming to pay you back while I'm going to interview in Annapolis and Newport. Well, he ran a company that managed renewable energy trade associations. Wow. And I had always wanted to not live at the place where I grew up. I always wanted to do my own thing. So working with my dad was not on the trajectory that was in my mind. And it took me about 2.5 years to figure out that naval architecture was not really going to be the kind of job that I thought it would be. And renewable energy, I always knew it was great, but I didn't see it as a career. And I definitely didn't want to work with my dad. And I kind of realized, wow, my dad's actually a pretty awesome guy. This work is incredible. And that was about 25 years ago. And I've been doing some version of that ever since.
How did those early technical experiences help shape your problem-solving approach today?
I've always been interested in tackling challenges and building new things. And so being in renewable energy industries has always fit that mold. So I started off in solar. This was solar in the early 2000s, so almost 25 some years ago. And the industry is totally different. It was a nascent industry that had definitely not become mainstream yet. I worked in hydrogen for a while after that, which also, I'm still not commercial, worked in that for about 10 years. Then it was while my job in hydrogen was changing, helping to run the National Hydrogen Association was changing because the organization that I was vice president of was merging with another organization, and the boards of those two organizations decided to take no staff over from either organization, so we were basically all out of a job. And I ran into someone who said, hey, I understand that you have experience, because I've been doing this now for renewable energy and working with trade associations for about a decade at that point. And someone ran into me at a conference and said, hey, I understand you have experience building trade associations. We need one for the anaerobic digester industry. Would you be interested in doing that for us? And I was like, well, yeah, I actually would be really interested. And also, I happen to be I'm soon to be very available to do that. And so, man, talking about being in the right place at the right time. And yeah, that was 15 years ago this month, actually.
Wow. So that's literally how you entered biogas through that.
Yeah, it was a chance encounter from being in the renewable energy space, and then having a need. The industry needed something. It happened to be something that I had some experience doing, and yeah, we built it. We built it from 20 companies. That there's nothing like it across the country. There's lots of trade in lots of industries. There's lots of trade associations. Yeah. For biogas, there was nothing, especially for anaerobic digestion. There still are trade associations for landfills, which we consider to be biogas projects also. But there's landfill trade associations, but nothing for anaerobic digestion. And so, yeah, 20 companies in 2010 to over 400 now. There's about 6,000 people in those 400 companies that call themselves ABC members. Yeah. It feels really good.
Awesome. And what was the spark from that person that led them to think, okay, we need a council for the biogas industry?
It was really policy. For any of the renewable energy industries, if you go back, and for any of the mainstream renewable energy industries, and you look at their growth, and there's usually a point where that growth goes from being like straight line linear to being more like a hockey stick, to being exponential. Right. And when you look at when that growth really accelerated and that growth went vertical, what happened right there? 9 times out of 10, there was some policy change, some advantage that industry could get that they didn't have the year before, that then created a lot of opportunity for new investment. And so the people that wanted the trade association, they knew that there was no one working for policy for anaerobic digestion to make sure that biogas was considered renewable energy with wind and solar and geothermal and hydro and the others, make sure that it's in the conversation. Someone needed to start that, and that's what they needed for the industry to grow and for their companies to grow.
So tell us a bit more about the early days. What would you say were some of the biggest first wins that you got?
One of the biggest things that has helped the industry is, so this is all going to be, the answers to all of these are really going to be policy related.
Sure.
So there's tax credits that several renewable energy industries have enjoyed for a long time, and every time we were able to get those extended, it gave certainty to the market, which if you can be certain that you're going to be able to take a tax credit, because it generally takes about 2 years to build a project. Yeah. So you need certainty for 2 to 5 years for the financiers to invest in the projects. They need to know that revenue is going to come in. And when you can get a tax credit passed, it makes the economics of of many projects significantly better for whatever that tax credit covers. And that makes the investors feel like it's a less risky investment. And when they're less risky, they're investing more projects are being built. And so there were lots of times between about 2010 and 2018 or so where there were like bumps for those. Actually following the recession in I guess that was like around 2013, 2014, following that recession when there was a Recovery Act that was passed, yeah. And in there a lot of those tax credits turned into grants, which is a lot easier to use. And when that happened, there was a big spike. And then later on, there was a policy in California called the Low Carbon Fuel Standard, which is all about decarbonizing the transportation sector in California. When that program was extended long term, and that gave the market certainty that program was going to be usable, that created another bump. And then there's been a bunch of others like that.
Who were some of the early champions of the American Biogas Council, and was there a lot of selling to do for other biogas companies to get them to join?
Well, the biogas industry's changed a lot. So biogas is all focused on the fact that organic waste exists. And if you want to recycle organic waste, which is generally the highest and best use that you can do with it, you only have 2 options: biogas systems and compost systems. What you do with the biogas once you make it, from the organic waste has really varied a lot in terms of how you generate the most revenue. Probably about the first 10 years or so of the last 15, it's been all electricity projects. Right about 2018, 2019 was a time when some policy changes happened at the same time that the cost of electricity got a lot cheaper in the US. And when that happened, we went from the price of electricity from 8 to 12 cents a kilowatt hour to more like 3 to 5 cents a kilowatt hour, which means that if you're making electricity from your biogas all of a sudden and you're doing a new project, you're getting paid a lot less.
Right.
And that happened at the same time that policy in California got extended long term, which created a lot of new value. And when those two things happened together, the industry shifted from electricity generating projects to renewable natural gas generating projects.
How did you approach policy advocacy in the early years, and what was your strategy to get lawmakers on radar?
It's kind of always been the same, which is most policymakers don't know what biogas is, and so we have to start there. We actually, it's interesting. We just finished some polling last week on how Americans react to biogas,
Right.
and it turns out that Americans, if they aren't told anything, you look at Americans today, and you ask them about biogas, they're going to be about 37% favorable towards biogas. If you tell them what biogas is, not that it's good or bad, just what it is and what it does, where it's made from, they'll be 86% more favorable to biogas.
Wow.
And that says a couple things. That says, one, that there's an incredible advantage that we can get as an industry if we just tell people what biogas is, but it also underscores how much people don't know about it and the job that we have to teach people about it.
So since 2010, the biogas industry has seen some serious growth. What's been the biggest change that you've seen from projects to perception?
So I think the biggest change in the industry has been the shift from mostly focusing on producing or building biogas projects that generate electricity to biogas projects that generate renewable natural gas. You can do tons of things with biogas, way more than just electricity and renewable natural gas. You can create renewable heat, you can create plastics. I mean, biogas is a hydrocarbon, and as we've seen with oil and gas, there are tons of products made from oil and gas. And we are renewable fuel and renewable product, but you can do the same chemistry with all those. So I think the biggest change was when the amount of money that you could make from selling your electricity plummeted, and the amount of money that you could make selling your biogas as renewable natural gas grew incredibly. And so right now, today, of the projects that are in development or the projects that were developed recently, 96% of those are being developed as renewable natural gas projects. But just 5 years ago is exactly the opposite. It was like 96% of those projects in development were electricity generating projects. So we had this long history of really over 100 years old. Some of the oldest operating projects in the US today are over 100 years old of electricity projects. And so about 70% of the operating projects in the US are generating electricity. But the share that's renewable natural gas is changing dramatically, because every year it's like 93% RNG projects in 2023, 96% last year. But if we look at what's happening right now, what we see is a lot of new market doors opening, which basically means new ways of selling biogas into other markets. So to give you an example, we have some of the largest projects in the world being developed right now to take the CO2 from biogas. Biogas is 60% methane, 40% CO2. Most of the time we just care about the methane, and we actually just, the CO2 is a byproduct.
Yeah.
But CO2 is a valuable commodity if you can just make money from it. One of the things you can do with it is you can combine CO2 with hydrogen and make methanol. Well, it turns out that the international organization that oversees shipping globally is getting ready to create a regulation that all shipping companies internationally, under their regulations, which is most of them, have to decarbonize the fuel that we're using for shipping. I forget what the stat is, but it's something like 30% of global commerce is handled by shipping. It's a shipping industry is massive in terms of what makes world business and products and the things that we buy go round. And so decarbonizing that sector is a huge job. But with them coming down and saying we have to decarbonize that sector, it creates an incredible demand for low carbon fuels. Well, it turns out that methanol is one of those ways to do that. And one of the ways to make sure that the methanol has a low carbon profile is to make it from the CO2 from biogas. And same thing for LNG. There's a lot of shipping coming from LNG. Well, LNG is normally made by liquefying conventional natural gas. But if instead of liquefying conventional natural gas, you liquefied renewable natural gas, now you've got a low carbon fuel. Yeah. And so there's that new market door opening. And then there's CO2 that can be sequestered. There's tax credits and benefits that you can get from sequestering the CO2 underground, and lots of other things that are developing. And so I think we're starting to see a shift right now from the last 5 years, which have almost been myopically focused on renewable natural gas projects, to now biogas projects that are going to produce a whole variety of things, from electricity to hydrogen to methanol to LNG, and other things as well.
The ABC now represents over 400 members. What does that kind of scaling actually look like behind the scenes?
Well, I mean, there's plenty of organizations, there's plenty of trade associations in other industries that are larger than we are. We are not one of the largest trade associations. We're really proud of 400 companies because that probably represents about 70 to 80% of the industry in the U.S. That's just how big the industry is. Yeah. And so that's really the more valuable marker to us, rather than is it 300 or 500, is as a trade association whose job it is to help grow the industry. Do we have enough members that represent the whole industry so that we can be confident that we're working on behalf of everyone? And another way to look at it is most of the industry participating in the trade association, because if they do, then there's more membership fees that we can collect, and with more resources we can do more on behalf of everyone. So if you don't know, or anyone listening doesn't know, the trade association does the things that individual companies have a hard time doing. No. And often because they're either really complicated, or it requires a lot of agreement or consensus, or it's really expensive. And when everyone can chip in a little bit, then you get a bigger pool of resources, so if you can tackle the expensive things. Or if there's something that you need a lot of different opinions to all agree on, then the trade association is the right body to convene all of that. Yeah. And so, it's a good mechanism to be able to tackle the kinds of challenges that we have today, and to help grow the biogas industry.
And what would you say have been some of the biggest challenges, since starting 15 years ago?
The biggest challenge by far is the fact that most people don't know what biogas is yet. So it's hard to make progress or make change if people don't even know that you exist, which is crazy because we've got 2,500 operational projects around the country. There's biogas systems in every state. Yeah. And, there are 1,100, maybe 1,200 wastewater facilities around the U.S., which means we should figure out what the stat is. But there's because most of those wastewater systems are in larger cities, there's a very high portion of the United States population that the waste that they flush down their toilet every day or send down their sink in a garbage disposal is getting turned into biogas. And most people don't even know about that. Landfilling, landfilling, it's the same biology is happening in a landfill. It's just happening under, a cover of garbage, which is microbes breaking down organic material and then making landfill gas. Most people are throwing away their trash into landfills that biogas can be captured from and then used for things, but people don't know about it. So we have to start with telling people what biogas is, and to the extent that this is helping with that, or anyone listening can tell your friends and family what biogas is, and that is going to be one of the biggest ways to help make change. And we all need it, because this organic waste that we are trying to recycle is not going to go away if we don't do something about it.
Was there ever a time, you thought, right, the ABC, we're trying, but we're not really making much progress, or
Well, it feels that way all the time. But we also have shining moments where you can see success, yeah. I think those are really heartening and keep you going. I mean, we're all. I think everyone would like to make money from the industry, and there are definitely people making money from the industry, and that's important because we all need to have jobs and feed our families. But I think the culture that we see in the industry starts with, I want to do something good. I want to do something that I'm proud of. I want to do something that's going to help my community, help the country, help the planet. And whether it's because you're focused on lowering emissions or you're focusing on driving investment, all of those things are good reasons to get up in the morning. And it feels good to be in a community of people and an industry of people that are all trying to do the right thing and just find the best way to do it.
If you had to name one or two major milestones, that made you go, we're really making a difference here, what would they be?
It's hard to answer those questions because what's really happened in the biogas industry is steady growth. If you look at the growth of new projects, we don't have big spikes. In most cases, unless you look at like specific sectors. Like there was a time after one of the more recent recessions when the Recovery Act came in that particularly helped farm-based projects. So there was a spike there from that. But generally what we find is steady growth. We're growing at the rate of about 100 new projects a year, so 2,500 projects a year. I think that works out to be about a 5 to 6% growth. But when you look in the specific sectors we have, like if you look at the sectors of like wastewater, food waste, farm-based systems, and landfills, we're seeing strong double-digit growth in farming and landfill gas, and then less growth in wastewater and food waste today. But generally overall as the industry, you're seeing steady growth. And I think the reason for that, it actually goes back to the education, it goes back to how much people know, because the more biogas systems are out there, the more people see them and more people talk to them. Like the more farmers are talking to each other about their biogas system, the more wastewater municipalities their operators are talking to each other. For big companies that are generating lots of food waste, like Anheuser-Busch, Magic Hat, Sierra Nevada Brewery, even pharmaceutical companies like AstraZeneca and others, Unilever, they all have a lot of food waste. They've all been developing biogas projects or buying biogas. The more that happens, the more other people hear about it. And then as I mentioned earlier, if you just know what biogas is, the favorability rating goes from about 36% to 87%. Around in there. And I think that's what we're seeing. I think we're seeing kind of word of mouth. And what would be really great is if we could have we've had some policy wins, but nothing that's like blow it out of the water great yet. But if we had those, if we could get our policymakers to really recognize what a comprehensive impact, positive impact the biogas industry has, whether you're Democrat or Republican, we could get some of those spikes and get more of the hockey stick that we've seen happen in wind and solar when they've gotten, major benefits from Congress and things like that.
And what excites you most about where the biogas sector is headed over the next 5 to 10 years?
I think the diversity in the industry, because, diversity in terms of business growth or even your own financial planning, diversity is really important to help lower risk and maximize your opportunity for growth. And I think as the industry has been mostly focused on electricity projects in the beginning, in the last 15 years, so from 2010 to 2020, electricity projects only. From 2020 to 2025, almost I'm grossly oversimplifying, but almost RNG projects only. And now 2025 and beyond, we're looking at all these other kinds of markets and other kinds of projects. That's incredibly exciting.
How does RNG fit into the broader energy transition conversations, especially hydrogen and transportation? We talked about, the shipping industry. How does that look?
Biogas fits into the transportation industry in lots of different ways. So, let's start with I'll just go through different types of transportation, right? So if you do personal vehicles, like light duty vehicles, the impact is more likely to be on the electric vehicle side, producing electricity to go to electric vehicles. We're doing that in a bunch of projects. We could be doing a lot more. So that is definitely a minority of the market, but that's an opportunity. You look at heavy duty trucking, we're generally talking about switching trucks over from diesel to natural gas vehicles and then running those vehicles on renewable natural gas. Over 90% the heavy duty trucking in the US that is running on natural gas is running on renewable natural gas. So that shift has been huge, but we need to shift more of the diesel trucking over to natural gas so that they can run on renewable natural gas. And then you've got the shipping industry as well. There's a little bit of interest in the aviation industry to use biogas to help generate sustainable aviation fuels as well. That's a little bit further behind the other markets, but that's right there as well, and is one of those new markets that makes it really exciting to see where this industry is going to go. And then there's tons of non-transportation applications as well. So again, it's that diversity. There's so many different ways you can use it. We have organic waste everywhere, so you can put a biogas system any place that you can find land, and then it's just a matter of, okay, well, what products does that area need to design the project appropriately?
Are there any trends or technologies that you're keeping your eye on at the moment?
I think the one of the technology categories that excites me most is for biogas upgrading to RNG, not overall, but specifically finding ways to scale that down, because so far the RNG upgrading equipment and that technology has had a really hard time scaling down economically. It really only works for larger projects because of the capital cost for that equipment. And some companies are starting to figure out how to make smaller scale RNG upgrading equipment that isn't super expensive, that can be affordable for a smaller project. And that's going to be really important as we try to get biogas systems at the smaller towns and cities with their wastewater plants, or the smaller medium-sized farms, your dairy farms, your swine farms, even get them on poultry farms. That's going to be really exciting from a technology perspective, and it's just starting to come. I think another area is in nutrient recycling. It's a shame that the digested material that comes from a biogas system is full of nutrients, and it's a super fertilizer. Yeah. We've seen that the crops that are grown from digested material compared to synthetic fertilizers their crop yields can be boosted by like 10 to 30%, which if you're a farmer and someone tells you they can boost your crop yields by 10 to 30%, that's a ridiculously high number. And again, I think it's just a matter of word of mouth till that really takes off. But right now, most of the time we're giving that material away because there isn't that recognition of value. And so the technology used to process the digested material into different kinds of soil products, but then also the technology is to take the nitrogen out to make a nitrogen-specific project or a phosphorus-specific product. That's also really exciting because in a lot of watersheds, like the Chesapeake Bay watershed, for example, has way too much phosphorus in it. Yeah. But there are other parts of the country where you need extra phosphorus. So why can't we just take the phosphorus out of the digested material, out of the manures in the Chesapeake Bay region, send it to where they need it, and stop shipping around fossil fuel derived fertilizers to both places? Yeah. It's possible, but it's not happening yet, and technology is a solution to that.
As biogas becomes more popular and more well known globally, how do you see the role of the ABC evolving with that?
I guess we're fortunate in that we're the only trade association that represents the entire biogas industry in the U.S. And as the voice of the biogas industry in the U.S., we're going to evolve with the industry. So, I think there is a global biogas industry, but it's really very local. Like if you look at the biogas industry in Canada, so right next door to the U.S., yeah, the market dynamics there are completely different. It's all the same biology, it's all the same technology, but the reasons that you develop project and the ways you develop project end up being very, very different. And so, the growth that's going to happen is always going to be very localized. Yeah. You can look at it broadly, but it's going to be local market dynamics. So we're going to evolve with that as much as we can. I think you'll see that the American Biogas Council just evolves with the growth of the industry and reflects where it is.
With biogas being a fairly newer concept to the US, how has that impacted the talent scope, would you say, and the recruiting side of things?
I think from a hiring perspective, in the biogas industry, you're finding two things are happening. One is there are a lot of people who are shifting around from company to company as they find the right place to be. It's a very tight-knit community. It's a good reminder to never piss anyone off. People stick around. But as a result, you're basically, as an industry, we're constantly pulling in people that have no experience with biogas and are coming from other industries. And in some ways that's healthy because you're bringing in learnings from other industries, but there's also just kind of a lot of education to do. So that's really what's happening is, from the recruiting perspective, is generally trying to find talent in other places, and then, or skills that you need that are adjacent to biogas, and then teaching them the biogas part of it. Actually, the teaching the biogas part is a big part of where the American Biogas Council comes in, because we have a whole training program to help get people up to speed on what biogas is, how you design projects, how you operate projects if that's your job. And, even to, like, if you're a biogas developer and your finance team, they need to know what biogas is.
Sure.
If you're working for a biogas company, even though they're handling accounting every day. And so trying to help with that education to help grow the industry is a piece of that puzzle.
And what piece of advice would you give to people looking to enter the biogas industry?
Come to the American Biogas Council. I mean, we're the biggest network for the companies that might be looking. If you just look at our membership list, which is public, you'll see the companies that are most active in the industry. You can become a student member for $75, and then you get access to all the contact information for all those members. And that's a really easy way to get a quick Rolodex. I guess that's a dated term these days, showing my age. But you get a quick list of 400 companies to reach out to, and we can help with matchmaking as well. If you know a company that you want to talk to, but you don't know who to talk to, that's an easy thing for the American Biogas Council to help with.
How does it compare to other energy industries, would you say? Is it easy to transition over, would you say?
Yeah, I think biogas is pretty easy to learn. I mean, we like to say it's not rocket science, but the systems can be complex. But we're just talking about basic biology that happens in a stomach, really. I mean, we're trying to just create a worm environment where microbes can thrive and eat up organic material and burp out methane. So it's pretty easy to pick up. And, when I'm hiring people for the American Biogas Council, I'm almost never looking at biogas as a prerequisite. It is a major benefit. If you happen to have the skills I'm looking for and you have biogas knowledge, you're at the top of the list for sure. And so, I mean, that would really be it. If you are coming from another industry and you're interviewing for a job and you're telling the person that you're being interviewed by, like, hey, look, I have this experience in all these other industries. I've never worked in the biogas industry, but I've taken the biogas crash course. And I know about it. That's a lot less work that employer has to do to teach you before they can, help integrate you with the team. And so that would be a huge leg up that I'd recommend for anyone trying to start out.
So we'll end on the quick rapid fire questions.
No, fun. Okay.
What is one myth about biogas that you'd love to bust?
Combustion is going to produce more emissions. Yes, it's true that if you burn biogas in an engine, it does produce emissions. But if you look at the life cycle of the biogas and all the emissions that were saved in making it, because if you didn't do anything with the organic material, we're putting methane into the atmosphere. And that's 20 to 80 times more harmful than carbon dioxide. And those massive, massive reductions in methane emissions are worth so much that it far overshadows the negatives of putting some carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. And we have opportunities to even capture that carbon dioxide. So I think there's some people out there that just myopically feel like, because it's being combusted. And it isn't always being combusted. That's an important part too. You can do things with biogas that's not combustion. But there's some people who are just purists and are like, oh, well, since it's combustion, it must be bad. And they just don't fully understand how more beneficial it can be. To give you an example of how beneficial it can be, if I take wind or solar and you make electricity and put it into a battery electric vehicle, that would have a carbon intensity of about 0. It'd be about 0 carbon. And I'm generalizing a little bit because there are emissions made, from making the solar panels and from making the wind turbines, but it's generally going to be about zero. If you look at taking manure from a farm and putting it in a biogas system and using that biogas to drive a natural gas vehicle truck, the carbon intensity is a negative 600.
Wow.
And if you look at a gasoline vehicle, that's about a plus 100. So even though you might be combusting the biogas in a vehicle, you're 6 to 7 times lower carbon than solar or wind to a battery electric vehicle. And I'm not saying we shouldn't do solar or wind to battery electric vehicles. Let's do that all day. But we have to make sure that biogas is in the mix.
Yeah.
And I think if more people understood that, we'd be doing more to recycle organic material, we'd be doing more to reduce carbon emissions, and we'd be creating a lot more local investment in our communities.
And what's a sector outside energy that inspires you?
Oh gosh, I spend most of my time outside of work trying to seek out crazy adventures. I'm kind of an endurance junkie. I race triathlons really seriously for about 25 years. I'm older now and I don't have the speed that I used to have. And so my friends and I that all used to race together, we all just kind of try to go longer. So long bike races, climbing mountains, whitewater rafting, surfing my brains out. That's what I really love to do.
And if you could fast forward to one policy change in the US, what would that be?
Sorry, I'm having trouble coming up with one because everything that's at the tip of my tongue are things that we're working on right now, which are going to make, they're going to make really good improvements.
Yeah.
But if I really had like a lamp and I rubbed it, and I could get one wish, I think I would wish for a requirement that all organic material be recycled.
And finally, who would you recommend as my next guest on this podcast talking about biogas?
I guess I would give you the 3 people that come to mind first that have really helped grow this, that are the reason that the American Biogas Council exists and are still in the industry somehow. And so they have a lot of perspective, and they were there before I was there too. I guess I would say Paul Green with Green Tech, Nora Goldstein with Biocycle Magazine, and Melissa Van Ornum at DVO.
Well, look, thank you so much, Patrick, for joining us. I had a great conversation, giving us some good insights into your background, and where the ABC has come from to today, and look forward to seeing things progress and going from there.
Me too. Thanks for having me.
No problem at all. Thanks a lot.